Welcome to episode 190 of Saturday Football Uncensored, brought to you by Saturday Down South. On today's episode, we break down the major games on the schedule for week one and give you our predictions for each game. You can find this show on our website, SaturdayDownSouth.com, and Apple and Spotify. During the season, join us for the live recording of the show every Sunday at 8 Eastern Time on the Saturday Down South YouTube page. One caveat for that, this week, obviously there's a big game on Sunday, so we will be recording on Monday during the Clemson-Duke game. You can find clips from the show on Twitter at SatDownSouth and at SatFBUncensored, on Instagram and TikTok at Saturday Down South, and you can find us on YouTube at Saturday Down South. And now here's the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Saturday Football Uncensored, brought to you by Texas Pete and Saturday Down South. I'm your host, Tyler Huck, and with you, as always, my co-host, Chris Marler. Chris, we didn't get to recap week 0 together, but
did not.
I'm very excited about this episode.
Yeah, we finally
really truly the start of the season.
It is. I'm so fired up, man. I'm so fired up. We're recording this on a Wednesday. This will you can listen to it obviously. What I guess Thursday, the first day. I mean, day one of games. So yeah. I'm fired up, man. And there's so I've heard people shit on some of the slate, especially for week 0, which is probably kind of warranted, especially the way some of those games went. But some of these for week 1, I'm pumped about, really pumped about.
Yeah, I mean, I think even the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I mean, every day through Monday has a good game at least. So I'm fired up about it. We're going to spend the majority of the time today breaking down the biggest games, some games that maybe we think are good bets. We're going to give you some locks of the week. Should we just dive in?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's start with an interesting game on Thursday, in my opinion, in the ACC. It's NC State at UConn. Plus 4, UConn, plus 14.5 at home. Over the total's 47. It's on 7:30 on CBS Network. The reason why I put this in there is, first off, I'm excited to watch NC State. They've got Brennan Armstrong, who transferred in from Virginia. He was there for 5 years.
Right.
And he was really good 2 years ago for Virginia. Really good, to the tune of almost 4,500 yards, 31 touchdowns, 10 picks. That was under an old OC, Robert Anae, who then went to Syracuse. His numbers fell off. Well, now Robert Anae is the OC at NC State. And he transfers in, familiar with him. NC State's always got a good defense. But UConn, they were a laughing stock. It was UMass and UConn were the two that are just ridiculously bad. Last year, I don't know if people even paid attention to UConn. Probably not. They made a bowl game last year. Dude,
at one point, shout out Ghost Mike Toscano from Twitter, our buddy the Milkman, big UConn guy. This is the one I told you about, who they had the Got Milk sign about him at the Final Four, which I thought was awesome. Yeah. Great dude. But I remember talking about this last year. At one point, and I'm not trying to discredit UConn because they did make a bowl, but at one point through 9 or 10, 11 games, when people were trying to go to bat for Michigan and their strength of schedule, UConn was being used as a win on their schedule. That they'd be like, well, they beat UConn, who's going to be bowl eligible, and it was ugh.
Yeah, well, yikes. I wouldn't necessarily say they're that good, but I will say for this year, so last year they made it to a bowl. They won 6 games, the most since 2015. They bring in a transfer QB, Joe Fagano from Maine, who played for the current OC at UConn when he was at Maine, and they feel like they can have a really expanded offense, especially in the passing game. Last year they were forced to play a true freshman at quarterback, and it was mostly poor results, and they still won 6 games. They have the strength of the team apparently is their O-line and their D-line, which you always love when you're betting an underdog. And even one of their right guards was a second-team All-American last year, first UConn player since 2010 to be an All-American. So it's a home game. Jim Mora has already come out and been we've got to get an amped crowd out here. This is a chance to actually make a name for ourselves. And NC State has Notre Dame next week. So
are you leaning towards something here?
I'm gonna take UConn to cover.
Okay.
I like that hook. It's 14.5. think you see a sloppy, disjointed game, which a lot of week 1 games are. NC State never in danger of losing the game, but I think they win something like 27-13, which would be a cover by that hook. So I'm going UConn in my first official pick of the season.
I'm not touching that.
Okay. Yeah, I
We
would.
are like this pumps me up because we're already in season mode where we're going into our first part of the recording, and you fucking surprised me with like.
With
By the way,
UConn.
first pick of the week. Let's go UConn, NC State, not basketball. That fires me up though. That's good. And like, I know that our buddy Ghost Mike is gonna love that. I don't know if we ever had UConn talk on here, and I kind of enjoyed it.
Good. One other game I want to
It's like a finger in the. Go ahead.
Well, there's actually more games I want to circle in the ACC before we move to probably a better conference. I just want to play a little sounder for you.
Oh boy.
Coral Gables or here
no,
in Oxford?
Oxford, Ohio.
Because you're around longer.
Bro, what?
No, I just think we'll show them September 1st.
I kind of cut that off, so let me play the beginning.
But the real Miami is where? Coral Gables or here
No,
in Oxford?
Oxford, Ohio.
There you go. That is the sound of Brett Gabbert, who is the quarterback of Miami of Ohio. They play Miami of Florida at Miami of Florida this Friday, 7 p.m. ACC Network. Miami is 16.5-point favorite.
Yeah.
Miami coming off a disappointing season. They got a lot to prove this year. Tyler Van Dyke, all the offseason stuff, him nearly transferring. He had a really bad injury season last year. I think he's actually questionable for this game.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, Miami, they remade their O-line in the offseason. They got a lot of transfers in, including Javian Cohen from Bama. But I like Miami of Ohio. They made a bowl last year. They got a really good.
This is like Tyler pushing his own fucking agenda to start this entire pod.
Hey, listen, bottom line, if Tyler Van Dyke doesn't go in this game, I like Miami of Ohio to at least cover. All right.
16.5.
16.5. Yep. And I'm going to go over 45.5 as well on the total.
Again, not touching this game. This will be a new segment we can do though, and we can just talk about sadness. Say what?
My spiteful picks.
Yeah, exactly. Who's angrier? Who's more spiteful than Tyler? Who's sadder than Marler?
Yeah.
Marler's not that sad though. Here's something that's new that we could talk about. How about this? You want to talk about some of the games, like one of the things that ESPN has when you bring up those those games, right? Mm-hmm. I'm looking at Wake Forest, another team from the ACC. They have the tickets as low as the get-in price of the games.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's got to be sad. That Elon Wake Forest matchup on a Thursday.
$8. Kent State UCF $4.
Couldn't find a meter. Here's $4.
Yeah, the Miami. I'm not even seeing. Hold on, I just saw it. Where the hell did it go? Miami. Miami
and a raucous crowd of about 8,000 down there for that game.
Yeah, it's on Friday, so it's Miami's favored by 16.5, like you said. Tickets as low as $6 for the Battle of Miami's. Listen, if we're gonna do a Battle of Miami's, what I want to see instead is like a beer Olympics, but with cocaine, and I want to see both sides. Like I'm sure they party a little bit up there in what was it, Gettysburg, Ohio?
Yeah, where is that?
Oxford, Ohio.
Okay.
It's one of the few cities in in Ohio or Pennsylvania. I feel like there's an end with a burg of some sort. Anyway, I'm not going to touch this game. I'm also not going to bet against Miami if I did touch it. I feel like just don't poke the bear. Like, what are you doing?
That's what makes me want to be like it feels like they have a lot of confidence up there in Oxford.
They went 6-7 last year in the MAC. Listen, I would love to see at some point, if we're in this day and age where Miami is they're having a battle of Miamis, or if they're doing like Bama's going to South Florida, like I would love to see the Miami Hurricanes go up to fucking Oxford, Ohio on a Tuesday night in like late October for some action. I'd be all on board for that.
After just having played a game on Saturday, like 2 days.
Right. This is Bishop Sycamore. By the way, have you seen the Bishop Sycamore doc?
No, I tried. I was out of town. I tried to download it on my HBO app. I thought I did,
Yeah.
and then I got on the plane and was like, no downloads. So I was gonna watch it. I still will, but I haven't done it yet.
That guy is out of his fucking mind.
The only other ACC game I want to talk about, maybe you have a pick on this game, is a Monday night game,
Yeah.
8 p.m. on ESPN. Number 9 Clemson at Duke, which is interesting. Wallace Wade Stadium there in Durham, North Carolina. Duke is plus 13 currently at home. Listen, we did the ACC preview. We had our guest on. A lot of hype about Duke coming off of last year. They've got, I'd say, one of the top QBs in the draft coming up. In
Yep,
Riley
and
Leonard.
left tackles.
They won 9 games in Mike Elko's first year. Do you have a pick on this? Because I feel like I've been making all the picks because I'm picking obscure ACC games. But
Yeah, I don't know why we decided to open up week 1 with all
well,
the obscure ACC stuff.
we're gonna listen. You got to listen to the whole pod to get the best picks, right? I mean,
That's true. That's true.
We got analytics to study now.
And your boy went 6-2 to start the year. So
and that's what we love. That's why people tune in.
That is why people tune in. We're already on a Peter. We are already on a Peter, and we're not even into the actual digits yet. So I'm most likely not gonna touch this game. I'll see how the weekend goes for me. Okay, like if I'm like up and I'm riding like a little bit high, like man, I might touch some stuff here. That sounds weird. But because the line's only 13, here's the thing: Clemson and Duke. I can't wait to see what the offense looks like. I've talked about this with a couple of teams. I think with Chris Gordy the other day that I really expect to come out hot. There's 3 teams now that I can think of right off the top that I think are going to come out hot because they have to for momentum from like the team, from the fans, for like the program, like to like let's keep the optics up, let's keep the optimism up, let's keep the vibes up, however the fuck you want to put it. Clemson's on there. Tennessee, Kentucky, Clemson, those are 3 teams I think that are going to want to come out and start off hot because they have a new OC for 2 of those teams, including Clemson. Let's face it, like Clemson should walk all over Duke. 13 points is not a crazy spread, right? I think a lot of us probably would have assumed it was probably more than that. I would love to see what it looks like in the first quarter. I would take Clemson to cover 13 here because I think they need to prove a point. But Duke is a team that won 9 games last year. They have one of the best quarterbacks. He was like 50 yards short of 3,000 yards last year passing. They got a left tackle protecting his blind side that is going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. Mike Elko is a phenomenal D coordinator at A&M. Let's not forget he was the D coordinator that was in charge of playing again or coaching against Clemson when they had those 2 really close games, especially the one in College Station a couple years back against A&M. So I would take Clemson to cover. This is going to be a game I think it's closer in the first half than people think. But like I'm excited to see because I think that Duke has got an offense. They got a little bit of an offense, and I think that Clemson. I think this is a game where Clemson wins in like the same way that we saw like those early Clemson years where they're like, all right, it might be, I don't know, 17-7 at the half. And then you look up at the end of the game and it's 35-10. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here's my thing on Duke. They didn't face one ranked opponent last year. Right. So now granted, 9 wins for Duke is still great, but it's not like they were beating world beaters. They didn't play Clemson. They didn't play Florida State.
Yeah.
Clemson's been king of the conference. They bring in the top OC out there that I guess was legitimately available. They get a first full season under Cade Klubnik. And whatever happened between DJU and Clemson, like DJU's come out and basically blamed Clemson for his struggles. And maybe he's right because they moved on from the OC as well. But it's a completely new regime. I think a more talented QB. I'm interested to see my pick on the game is actually gonna be under the 55.
Okay.
Because I like Clemson's D pretty much any year, and Elko is a great defensive mind. So I think in a first game, maybe both teams are a little conservative. I think Clemson has tended to be in these games kind of conservative. I'm just interested to watch the game to see if there's any playmakers on Clemson's team outside of Will Shipley.
Right. And is he a playmaker?
I mean, yeah.
There's not a less aesthetically pleasing playmaker in the country than Will Shipley. He looks like. Well, we're not going to get into it. He looks like every like 7th grade running back I played with at Parkview that hit a growth spurt too soon, and then just never grew after that.
Never grew after that. So
Yeah.
my official pick on the game is under the 55.5, but I think Clemson wins, likely cover. Let's move on to another conference.
Okay,
please.
yeah. I don't know why we opened with the ACC unless we're doing this alphabetically. Let's go back to Thursday and let's do this chronologically. And I'll take over here for a second because there's a couple things that we talk about betting on here. Make sure you guys are betting. Make sure you are betting responsibly more than anything. You don't want to end up like Uncle Chris, or you do, because your boy was on fire last year and he also was on fire this week. So bet responsibly with the picks that we're going to give you because, like I said, we're off to a phenomenal start. All right, so here you go. Thursday night, here's some of the things that caught my eye. UCF playing Kent State. Don't want to touch this game necessarily. It's a 35.5-point spread. It's being played in the Bounce House. Tickets are $4. The prop bet for John Rice Plumlee passing touchdowns was only 1.5. That's like the only prop bet I really, really liked from Thursday night. However, there's like an 80% chance of rain tomorrow night. So it's going to be a slop fest down there in the Bounce House. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, there's a hurricane. I don't know how hurricanes work or obviously credit scores, but I think that both are going to be a factor for me this year going into the season. I think the first month is going to be miserable, dude. I'm currently in Columbia, South Carolina. It's overcast as shit here. Obviously, it was like bad weather in Atlanta all weekend. Like it feels like everybody's feeling the effects of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Orlando obviously is probably closer to this, but 80% chance of rain. Maybe like I don't see him throwing the football as much, right? Like I mean, just again slop fest. All right, moving on from UCF. You already went over the barn burner and up there in Yukon, East Hartford, Connecticut. Here's one that's like kind of interesting. I'll throw these people a bone because it's an SEC team, and we have some loyal listeners that are Mizzou fans. Mizzou, South Dakota. First and foremost, I say it every year. I'll say it again. We only need one Dakota. We need to fucking put an end to this. I think it's something like that, and what's it called? Daylight savings time.
Or the Dakotas, one should split off to claim its own territory, and then it'd be like almost like a North Korea, South Korea thing, where one's like real crazy and one's, the world respects.
No, we just need one fucking Dakota.
One Dakota. So you that's fine.
I'm a unifier, okay?
Let's
all right. Mizzou is playing South Dakota, not South Dakota State, which I didn't know needed clarification because that apparently would make it somehow worse or better of game. But South Dakota non-state, just the actual state itself. Mizzou opens up with. Here's what I want to see from Mizzou. I want to see what the quarterback situation looks like. Listen, the freshman kid that we haven't even talked about on this podcast, it was brought to my attention how bad of a job we did with this from my buddy Jeff. You talk about the quarterback that was coming out of Collins Hill, right?
Yeah.
It was Travis Hunter's quarterback.
Yep.
Last name Horn?
Yeah, Sam Horn.
Sam Horn. Horrible name.
Yeah.
Horrible name. Sounds like a fucking character from a Berenstain Bears novel. But Sam Horn is...
I'm not sure those novels per se. Or stories, perhaps.
Very true. Very true. Sam Horn throws 98 off the mound.
Yeah.
I'm taking a sip of my delicious Celsius. Sam Horn throws 98 off the mound. Like, you could hand the reins over to that kid, and you probably give up a game that you don't want to give up this year. But it's interesting to see how they're going to handle the quarterback situation with Eli Drinkwitz in a year where he kind of needs to win. 8 wins would do wonders for him. And I think they have the talent to do it. They're picking up a lot of steam in the recruiting trail as well. Here's another one, Nebraska, Minnesota. Not going to touch it. Minnesota's 7-point favorite. I'm excited to see what Nebraska looks like. I'm excited to see what Jeff Sims looks like. Horrible news this week, obviously, out of what do you call it, Lincoln or wherever the fuck Nebraska is located, about Eric Gilbert. And just, we're not going to get into it. We don't know all the details, but mental health is a very real thing, and it's a crisis plaguing the country. And that's all I'll say about that. Let's get into the one that matters. And I can't believe we've talked for 20 minutes without getting into this.
Wait. I have a pick on the Minnesota game.
Jesus Christ.
But, I think there's some intrigue there, right?
There is, yeah.
Matt Rule's era starts. Nebraska's 4th head coach in the last decade. Turnaround machine. That is
Yeah.
Matt Rule. I like Jeff Sims. I mean,
Mhm.
I think playing at Georgia Tech probably hurt him more than anything. I think he's a
Right.
decent option at quarterback. Minnesota coming off a 9-4 campaign. They got the Greek gunslinger at QB, Ethan Kaliakamanis. You know about him, Chris?
I do not. I
Neither
love a
do I.
Greek salad, though.
But he did play last year, and he threw for almost 1,000 yards and started 5 games when Tanner Morgan went down. Defense was a top 10 unit last year. Matt Rule, successful turnarounds at Temple and Baylor, but year one's usually not great. And I think it's a home game for Minnesota, night game on a Thursday. I'm going to take Minnesota to cover the -7.
Okay, I like that. All right. The big one in Salt Lake City. Not a good offseason for the state of Utah. Not a good offseason. Outside of Zach Wilson, not a lot of positives to come from the state of Mormons. Book of Mormon's still strong on Broadway, I believe, but not a lot.
You keeping up with the Broadway scene these days?
I mean, I like Book of Mormon. It's really funny. Have you ever seen Book of Mormon?
I haven't.
It's wildly inappropriate, but it's very, very funny. It kind of pokes holes in the entire Mormon faith, which I'm always on board for. But anyway, so the state of Utah.
Any of our Mormon listeners?
I hope not. Listen, if you are a Mormon listener and you have sister wives, like, throw some this way. What are we fucking doing over there? Like, this is craziness. Like, obviously, we'll get into this one.
Tough Mormon talk.
Stop being so selfish, Mormons. I mean, you can't hoard wives. It's ridiculous. All right, Florida and Utah. Here's your line. Are you fucking ready for this? This has been like watching like the economy and just on a daily basis. Like, have you seen the line plummet?
Yeah, it's what, -4 now for Utah?
4. It was at 10 when I started doing interviews today.
Today?
Yeah. I don't know. Probably not.
No,
Maybe yesterday.
It was 6.5 though, I think yesterday, and it opened at 10. So it's very much moved in the favor of Florida. And I think a lot of it obviously has to do with Cam rising.
But 6 points is a lot.
And he's not worth 6 points. So there's more to it than that.
Listen, Cam, if you're listening, you're worth.
Cam, I mean, look, I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah, whatever you think you're worth, buddy. I mean, keep your head up. Keep your chin up. I'm sorry for Tyler.
You can do anything.
He gets this new shirt from Roback, and he's being all sorts of an alpha douchebag.
You can do anything you want in this country. You can make one Dakota, and I can say that you're worth 6 points, and maybe you're worth 7. I don't know.
What if we just got a third Dakota? What if we just did that?
What if every state just became like Georgia, Dakota?
Just name all the conferences when they get down to 3 to 4. Just they're all some sort of Dakota. I'd be down for that. That'd be fine.
Yeah.
All right, Florida, Utah. I know our Florida fans and listeners, if we still have them after this offseason, are waiting with bated breath. I love this pendulum swing of optimism that's happening for Florida right now, and it's a lot like Bama. What's that?
What do you love it for from a gambling standpoint?
Let me just fucking talk for a second, okay?
I'm just
all I'm saying is I love the pendulum swing of optimism. I know you hate it because you're negative, but also you are. Yeah, when it comes to Florida.
Yeah, I mean,
you're
a hater.
Yeah. Anyway, well, you are kind of a hater about Florida, but anyway, Florida going to Salt Lake City at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Sounds like the worst snack ever. I love this pendulum swing of optimism. Like I said, them and Bama for the last week, for whatever reason, have gotten this like late kick and resurgence of hope and optimism. And I get it from Bama's standpoint. I don't get it as much as Florida's standpoint. But like we say every fucking year, this will be the first time we say it in the 2023 season. They didn't build these billion-dollar massive hotels in the middle of the desert off of losing. Vegas always knows something. And a 6-point swing in 1 week is a ton. Dogs say hello.
Oh, hello, dogs. Yeah, I'll give you my breakdown here. It's a revenge game for Utah. Obviously, last year they lose 32-29, and what was an upset, not only in Vegas, but I think most people had Florida pegged in that game. Florida returns only 8 starters this year. They bring in Graham Mertz. There's actually, I think some of the optimism on Florida has been the optimism surrounding Graham Mertz in camp, which I'm not going to take too much stock into that because I think he had a lot of hype in camp at Wisconsin in most years as well. So I don't really buy in on Graham Mertz yet. We'll see. But I love Florida's run game. Last year against Utah, just in that game, they had 531 rushing yards. Granted, that was with Anthony Richardson, and he had a lot to do with that. But I love Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne. They give you proven production, proven consistency, a great run game. Last year in this game, Utah missed 29 tackles, and Kyle Whittingham definitely specifically mentioned that and said they've been working on that in the camp leading up to this game. So we'll see if they get it fixed. For me, man, like Cam Rising, like I did say, he's not worth 6 points. I agree with that, but obviously you'd rather have him. Last year, Rising was good in this game. If they have him, which I don't think they're going to, I think that is part of what has happened here. I would probably take Utah if he played. But because I don't think he will, and I think that a run game always travels, I don't know what Florida's defense is going to look like. I think they can keep it within the number. I will say in the last 2 years, only one team has come within 10 points of Utah at home.
Yeah.
And that was USC last year, which is a really good offense. And they still lost the game. So you know what? I'm actually going to go back on it. I'm going to say Utah -4.
So Utah money line is I'm trying to look it up right now. I would bet a substantial amount on that. I think
I don't
that's
love
a really
the number.
good.
I don't love that number of 4.
Right, I don't either, but I do think that they like you said, you pointed this out a couple weeks ago. Like you're talking about a team that had, let's see here, I'm trying to pull it up right now. The money line is -198. Yeah, we'll put that in as a lock. That is a lock. If you want to just put down 100 to 150. What's that?
What was the number?
198, -198 for the money line. And also, you're only getting +164 for Florida, which I think speaks volumes to the point like where, maybe Vegas still knows something because the odds aren't crazy good in your favor. At the same time, like, man, -198, like that's worth it. I think like the juice is probably worth the squeeze there. I think looking at what Utah does, I was on radio this morning on Sirius, the SEC this morning, and I talked to Dari Noka and Ian Fitzsimmons. Never talked to Ian Fitzsimmons before. He was great. Got along with him very well. It was a lot of fun. He brought up the point that he's been friends with Kyle Whittingham for about 20 years. Talking with Kyle Whittingham this offseason, he said, it sounds like from the tone of his voice that Cam Rising is not going to play. And that's going to be tough, obviously. Mm-hmm. Like you have said before, outside of COVID, they haven't lost a game at home since 2018. Then you talk about what he also said, which is scary, is that this might be the best defensive team Utah's had under Kyle Whittingham since he's been there. And that should scare people because that is a team, I've said it before, it's built so – it's not even just out west in the Pac-12. There might not be a team west of the Mississippi that is built like an SEC team as much as Utah is year in and year out. They are like this baseline, like built from the inside out, built in the trenches, just have a very physical nature to the way they play football. And then you talk about also with what like they've done there, it has like a lot of the vibes of like what LSU did in the start of the 21st century, which is, they went like 20 straight years. They had 8 wins or more. And I don't know the numbers in front of me, and I'm sure they haven't done that because LSU is the only team to have done that. But Utah is one of the most consistently good teams we've seen over the last decade plus. And they're always a really good team, I think, like especially with their head coach. So I'm going to take Utah money line in this game. I think Utah wins. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is a game that goes into the 4th, especially if Florida gets lucky enough to where Rising isn't able to play. And I will say this, from a positive standpoint from Florida, there's a reason why the line is plummeting, and there's a reason why people are starting to get more positive about them. And I think that Napier, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see this where it's like, well, Napier knows what he's had the whole time, and we've all been wrong. Because this is a team, we've been wrong about them for several times in the last couple of years. You were on here when we had the interview with Chris Dorian a couple of years ago, and he's like, well, you didn't believe in Florida in 2020. You didn't believe in 2019. You didn't believe in 2018. They were a New Year's Six Bowl team every single one of those years. Like, this is a team that it's weird to say because it's Florida, but they constantly overachieve from what our expectations are because we just keep putting the expectations lower and lower for some reason. So we'll see how it goes. I'm very interested to see how that plays out. Let's get to Friday. What do we have on
That's my
Friday?
point. I do want to say one thing if people are still waiting to bet to see if Cam Rising plays. One thing that can't be discounted is if Whittingham has known, because remember, it's not like this was a recent injury. Cam Rising tore his ACL in the Rose Bowl last year.
Yeah.
So they have known that it was going to be a possibility he wasn't going to play. You've had all offseason to get whoever your guy is reps and ready for this game. It's not like a last minute, hey, the backup's going to have to play this week. So that does help Utah in that favor as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, let's breeze through Friday. I don't give a shit about Michigan State and Central Michigan. Might be good to jump on Michigan State. They're a 14-point favorite, but I'm not touching that. You already brought the Miami game. Kansas playing Missouri State. Tickets as low as $26. Tyler, what if I told you that was the second highest ticket price of anyone on the Friday night action? You know who is third?
Who?
The only game I'll watch. Georgia
Okay.
Tech, Louisville. Motherfucker. They're playing this game at Mercedes-Benz. Excuse my language. They're playing this game at Mercedes-Benz instead of Bobby Dodd.
Yes, that is correct.
That sucks.
That does suck. That's not really a neutral game site that I would look at and be like, yeah, I'm real excited to go to that game. So
It's the
not sure why
Aflac
they would have it
kickoff
there.
game. Ooh, yikes. Louisville 7.5-point favorite. There's some things to watch in this game I think that are exciting.
Okay.
Your full year one, Brent Key.
Yep.
Full year one of Braum at Louisville, right?
You never
Two
want to go
first-year
full
coaches.
Brent Key though, do you?
Huh?
You never want to go full Brent Key.
You never want to go full Brent Key. You are really high on Braum in Louisville this year, which I kind of like. They have a lot working for them going into the season. I'm excited to see what Haynes King looks like in a new uniform. See if it's just as bad as it was a year ago, or if it's gotten better. They've got a couple of pieces over there that could be fun to watch at Tech, and I love. They're playing this game like it's literally less than a mile from Bobby Dodd. This is so stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need to stay and get into this game too much, or any of these games on Friday night.
This is my
I
lock.
will
This is my
watch.
lock of the week.
Oh, okay.
-7.5. Louisville.
You don't want to buy the hook?
Yeah, I probably would, depending on the
Okay.
cost. But I just Georgia Tech is not very talented. They lost a bunch of transfers off the team, too. Like some of their best players transferred out.
Yeah.
I don't know that I really like Haynes King as a quarterback. I've never seen anything from him
like
that
his
makes me
face. I
think
know that.
he's
It looks like
great.
Joffrey from Game of Thrones.
And Louisville, like I like Braum, like I said, and he got Jack Plummer to transfer in, who he has. I mean, they've worked together at Purdue, so
Mhm.
you would think that they would pick that up quickly. And this is kind of, I don't know if this is like a well-known thing, but Louisville is actually very good in the NIL game, so they actually have some pretty decent talent on the roster.
Yeah.
So for me, I just Georgia Tech doesn't travel well anyways. I mean, like at home games, they're not really traveling, but I don't think they're
Right.
going to get a packed Georgia Tech crowd. So I like Louisville in this game. This is my lock of the week.
Okay. Let's get into the Saturday slates before we get into some of the stuff. We've already talked about Clemson, so we've already covered the Monday slate. We'll obviously close with the game of the week. That is your Florida State Seminoles against LSU on Sunday. But let's get into Saturday a little bit. I'm just going to go in order from the noon kicks. Don't give a shit about Michigan, East Carolina. It'll be interesting a little bit to see if Blake Corum looks healthy again. East Carolina was a team that I feel like put up some points last year. Maybe they were awful. I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. Here's your 12 o'clock slate, though. You ready for this? Here's what I'm looking for, at least, from the 12 o'clock slate. A lot of games on. Kentucky Ball State, I think it's a team that's going to want to get out to an early lead and like show what they have at offense. I'm going to look at what the first quarter and first half lines are for Kentucky. They were abysmal in the first half a year ago, only averaged 7.8 points per game in the first half of games. I think that changes this year, so that'll be interesting. TCU Colorado. Hope TCU wins by a fucking 1,000. I'm so over hearing about Dion. He took a shot at your alma mater. I want to hear your thoughts on that when he said that he graduated from HBCU. So I don't know what Florida State did to him that he's so mad about.
He got mad that we hired Norvell over him. That was what was being talked about behind the scenes. Is he was part of his whole plan was to take Travis Hunter and then take Cormani McClain and take all these top picks and then be like, this is what I could have done for you, and hopefully Norvell was going to have a bad thing and he was going to parlay the job. That was like the rumor, and I think that there was maybe some credibility to it. I think he was slighted. Like we interviewed him when we interviewed Norvell, but it was more so as I don't know that it was that official, and I think he felt that way too. And I think that's where it comes from. But he's just being an ass, man. I mean, and
he
I
kind of
agree.
is. He is an ass man, huh?
Yeah, he is an ass man.
Not me.
Go back to when Derwin James was drafted, and he interviewed him, and he's like, "Yeah, we the Knowles." Like he was playing it up then. He's a. Anyways,
a chameleon. I mean, what are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah.
And also, he made another comment this week too that we should talk about real quick, where he was talking about how culture and how dumb the phrase culture is and how unimportant it is, and he doesn't believe in it because the whole thing is. He's like, they kept talking about Jackson State, like culture this, culture that, like what is this? What does this even mean? Like the culture you're trying to make. He's like, whoever has the best players wins. And I was like, that is a slippery slope, my man.
Yeah, that's ultimately why I think he won't have a ton of success at this level.
Yeah,
because that is his mindset, right? It's like so. This one's hard to say because Colorado was abysmal last year, 1-11, worst defense in the country. They only have 10 of the 84 scholarship players that were on last year's team in the program. 7 on offense, 3 on defense. You could say it's a good thing, I guess, if they're that bad. But according to Buff Zone, there are 114 players in the program, and including walk-ons, and 86 of them are in their first season at Colorado. So there's really no way to know what's going to happen. Obviously, Deion's son is the QB. He put up great numbers at Jackson State, as he should have, I would think, at an FBS level player playing at the FCS level. I think TCU, I like TCU, what Sonny Dykes has done there. They got Kendall Briles now. People forget Chandler Morris, quarterback, won the job last year over Duggan, but then he got hurt, and Duggan started his thing. So, Sonny Dykes has talked about being a program and not being a one-season team. And so I think they're going to be really focused. They're probably more sick of hearing about Deion than we are.
Yeah, I'm just saying a lot.
And it's a home game. I'm going TCU big, cover the 20.5.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know if I'll bet on it yet, but I could see me pulling the trigger late. I'll get into my locks of the week, and it's another 12 o'clock game. It's Tennessee, Virginia. Virginia's a team that is going through shit that no one else in the country is going through. The shooting they had last year on campus, a lot of people left. It was a horrific tragedy. They're a team that's going to be very bad. They're going to be a very bad football team, and I think this is the worst possible team to run into week 0. I think that playing Tennessee for Virginia is worse than playing Georgia or Bama, because this is a team, I said it earlier, but some of those other players or some of those other teams like Kentucky and Clemson, I believe it for Tennessee more than anybody. There's nobody that wants to shut up the critics more and prove like, we're not going to miss a beat. Like we lost Heupel, we lost all this talent for the NFL drafted receiver, but we're not going to miss a beat. We're the number 1 scoring offense in the country a year ago. We're going to be the number 1 scoring offense again. I got a quarterback that can throw it out of the fucking stadium, and just watch us work, because they're only a 28-point favorite. And then the over-under is at 56. So you're basically talking about 42-14 is what the odds are being projected here at. Tennessee is going to be improved on defense, I would assume. Virginia's just bad all around. I don't think that they have and I'll tell you where I would bet this. It's not a good bet financially to make this bet, but I think it's free money. So I'll throw it out there. Tennessee to score first.
Okay.
It's like minus 540 time. It's such a bad bet. But all the dogs say hello. But that being said, they scored a first in 11 of their 13 games a year ago. I'm looking at this like I look at everything from my betting standpoint, which is first quarter, first half. Tennessee is a 16.5-point favorite in the first half. I'm taking that. Tennessee is minus 7.5 in the first quarter. I'm probably going to end up taking that. And then Tennessee over under in the first quarter is 12.5. The first half is a lock. The over under the over under 12.5. I feel like is my second favorite bet.
Is that a team total?
No, it's combined.
Because the team total is 10.5, and I love that number too.
Yeah, hell yeah, jump on that too. Then in the first quarter
team total, yeah.
So that they scored. There was a combined 12.5 points or more in 11 of their 13 games a year ago. There was an average of 16.4 total points scored in the first quarter of their games in the 2022 season. I mean, there's games you look at, they were up 21-7 on Bama in the first quarter. They were up 13-0 at LSU. There's a lot of games. There's a lot like, they didn't score first against Pitt. They were down 10-0, I think, in the first. They were down. I can't do the math on it. Maybe 10-7, but they were down at one point 10-0 in the first quarter in that game. There's several. I think like Kentucky, there was like 7-6 in the first quarter. That still gets you the over. And that's a game they won 44-6. Tennessee last year in the first half of games was the number one scoring offense in the first half. They averaged 23.8 points per game in the first half of games. They actually averaged 28.8 in home games. This game is at Nashville. It's basically going to be a home game. So 23.8 overall, 28.8 at home. Virginia, on the other hand, averaged 6.3 points per game in the first half of games last year, which ranked 128th out of 131 teams. My lock of the week, Tennessee minus 16.5 in the first half, over 12.5 total in the first quarter as well. I think if you want to get spicy, and we know we love our Texas Pete here, they're going to score first. But also, you don't want to like lose like a shit ton of money just
$500,
you know what I mean? 120 is like, is that bad?
My pick surrounding the game all had to do with Tennessee team totals.
Yeah.
Because I agree with everything you said, and I think they're going to leave Milton in to give him confidence as well. Yeah. So I like the team total over 41.5.
Mm-hmm.
I like the first half total over 23.5. And I love your stat that they averaged 28.5 last year.
Yeah.
And I love the Tennessee first quarter over 10.5. So all team totals for my bets in this game. 28's a big spread. I think they'll probably cover it, but
I do too. So let me ask you this though: have you seen a Joe Milton prop? Because I haven't seen one yet.
I have not. I haven't looked for one though.
It has to be around 3.5, and I would take that. Like Gordy and I talked about this on Monday and a little bit on his podcast yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a situation where it's like, let's get the Joe Milton era in quotes, which is only going to be one season, but let's get the Joe Milton era off to a fast start. And I wouldn't be shocked if he had a bunch of touchdowns. The other thing is this though, like why I think they cover the 28 and they're not going to let their foot off the gas. Nico is going to get brought in. They're not going to stop the offense. You saw what they did last year against Mizzou. They're not going to take their foot off. And I mean, that game against Mizzou, I think it was like 63-30 or 63-28 or something like that. And it was like, they just kept throwing and kept throwing and kept throwing. I think that's what they'll end up doing here too.
Like it.
All right, moving on. I'm just going through. Here's one at 3:30 that could be a little bit interesting. Not for anything that's going to happen on the field. I'll watch it. Ohio State, Indiana. Ohio State on the road at Indiana. They announced that Kyle McCord is going to be their starter. Here's the deal, okay? What's the other kid's name? Devin what?
Brown.
Devin Brown. If you're listening, which I know you are, you're a big fan of the pod. Who isn't? You did this to yourself, bro. You don't fucking show up to camp wearing number 33 like your dad handed you down some fucking old raggedy Larry Bird jersey and told you to go hoop it up with the local crew. That's a ridiculous move. You lost on that alone, and no one feels bad for you. Well, besides your family, probably. Sorry to them. I think it'll be interesting to see what this offense looks like. How much time do both kids get? You don't really get tested until you have Notre Dame. But it'll be interesting to see like how they look. I'm going to stay away from this to an extent. I'm going to look and see what the first half betting is on it. But for the most part, I'm probably going to stay away from this because I think that I don't see it necessarily being like worth like the full game of 30 points is odd. The reason why it's odd, in my opinion, is because it's going to be on CBS, dude.
The game's on CBS. It's a national game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's Ohio State.
It's on CBS. Gary and Britt Gary and Brad Nessler are gonna call Ohio State at Indiana.
Is the SEC done with CBS starting this year?
No, it's next year, but they have like a couple they're working in apparently.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
A 3:30 game I like on ABC is Boise State at number 10 Washington.
Mm-hmm.
14.5 point spread, 58.5 total. Obviously Washington is kind of a darling team from last year. I mean, and Kalen DeBoer's a really good coach. They went 11-2 last year. They had the number 2 ranked offense in the country, beat Texas in the Alamo Bowl. They have a Heisman Trophy contender, a wide receiver, and an edge rusher that are preseason All-Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of hype around Washington. But I do like Boise State this year. They were 10-4 last year. They're favored to win the Mountain West. I really like they've got a two-headed monster at running back, and I think they're going to play a little ball control to keep the offense off the field for Washington. And I think I've heard this talked about, and I think I agree with it. The new rules with the moving clock, after first downs, I think helps when underdog teams who run the ball really well are trying to play that ball control game.
Yeah.
To cover these, larger spreads. This one's 14.5, so I'm gonna take Boise State to control or to cover the 14.5.
Okay, that'll be interesting. I think that like you also have the tie-in from, what's his name, DeBoer being like the old head coach there, which I love. We'll see how it goes. I think it'll be interesting either way. All right, keep going here. Texas at Rice, I'm not going to watch. Wisconsin, I might peep in there to see what it looks like with the new offensive coordinator, Phil Longo. You guys have heard me talk about it enough this offseason. That could be interesting. Don't give a shit about USC. Still scrolling. We are now in the 7 o'clock hour on my schedule here. I'm going to skip over A&M New Mexico. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited to see what Wegman looks like. I think I'm looking at the first half lines, and it's 23.5, which is just way too much for me with what we saw last year with A&M. I think that defense is going to be salty, so that could be kind of fun to watch. They're a 38-point favorite, and the over-under is only 49, so not a lot of wiggle room there if you're New Mexico. All right, here is what I'm also interested in. Okay, we don't need to talk about Georgia UT Martin, right?
Right.
Okay. I can't see anything else on the schedule that makes me want to turn
North Carolina, South Carolina.
I'm getting there.
7:30.
Yeah.
West Virginia
UTSA in Houston at 7. I won't watch it, but I'm interested to see the outcome because UTSA on the road against a Big 12 team, and they're a 2-point favorite.
Yep. And Dana Holgerson is one of the coaches on the hot seat this year to start the year. Yeah, Houston. And UTSA got Frank Harris back. They gave him a big NIL deal, and he was one of the more electrifying athletes out there last year. Yeah. So I am interested in that game as well. Also in the night slot, Penn State. I just want to see what they look like with Drew Lar. West Virginia is going to be the dregs of the Big 12, and they'll probably fire their coach midseason. But Penn State, I think that they could be a title contender this year if things go in the right direction. So I'm interested to watch them.
Yeah, and I love them minus 11.5 in the first half of that game because I think that hold on here. I think that what do you call it? West Virginia was one of the worst first half teams. Really one of the worst Power 5 teams in the country a year ago. I don't think that that's a bad play at all there. And I think Penn State also might cover the 20.5. I think Penn State is out to really prove a point this year. It's a team last year that we kind of slept on. They went 10-2. They were really good, man. Like they were really like looking at their schedule real quick from a season ago. I admittedly slept on this team because they lost at home to Ohio State. They got rocked by Michigan on the road, but they had this opening game where they only won by 4 at Purdue. After that, dude, I mean, they won every single game they played by double digits or more after that game. And then they went to the Rose Bowl and just ho-hum beat the number 8 team in the country, Utah, by 14. Yeah. Finished 11-2. You have a loss by 13 where they had a lead in the fourth quarter of that game against Ohio State. They lost 41-17 against Michigan. That's obviously a tough scene, but Michigan's a playoff contender and made the playoff 2 years in a row. But dude, I mean, I'm looking at this like they didn't play a lot of ranked teams, but they destroyed Auburn by 29. They they weirdly enough only beat Northwestern by 10. But in conference, man, you beat Minnesota by 28. You beat Indiana by 31. Maryland by 30. They blanked Maryland. They blanked Maryland's offense and held them to 0 points, which is very tough to do. So yeah, I like them to cover 20.5. I'd love them to cover the 11.5 in the first half as well. Let's get to 7:30. I'm gonna give you just one bold prediction before we talk about the good game. Okay, just one. Just indulge me.
Okay.
Jalen Milroe is going to start against Middle Tennessee State. Okay.
Okay.
Look at me, Tyler. Don't look away. Don't start laughing when they tee up that ball.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. But they're going to come out there. My bold take is this: he's going to do something that drops jaws, like on Saturday. That's going to wow a lot of people. I don't think no matter what he does, unless he throws like 3 interceptions, I'm not sold necessarily one way or the other, I think. But you're going to see both quarterbacks. I'll give you another hot take. I think Buckner is not, if they play 3 quarterbacks, Buckner's not the third one to come in. It's Dylan Lonergan instead of him. But I think that Bama, the things I want to see from Bama, I want to see Jalen Milroe not throw an interception. I want to see him have one big break. I want to see them involve him in the offense. Like, one thing Bill O'Brien didn't do a good job of, you heard me bitch about it before, is I want to see him go on a run or have some sort of RPO, run pass option where they use his legs, so Texas has to prepare for that. I want that to be a big part of their game planning, whether that happens in week 2 or not. The other thing I want to see is 0 points allowed. I think that has to be the standard. If they give up over 7, I'm going to be upset. I think they really need to go into this game and get a little bit back of that Bama suffocating defense and that swagger on D. Now, moving on from that, South Carolina, North Carolina. Walk me through, Tyler, as somebody that's watched the ACC. Tell me why UNC is still a 2.5-point favorite here.
I don't know. I mean, Drake May obviously is going to be the big reason. He's probably going to be the number 1 pick, if not, then the top 5. He was not only did he throw for 4,300 yards and 38 touchdowns to only 7 picks last year, but he also was the leading rusher on the team, almost 700 yards, another 7 touchdowns. I don't know why they're the favorites though. They have not had a good defense in quite some time, and their number 1 playmaker that they planned on replacing Josh Downs with is Tez Walker, who's in this big NCAA waiver thing. And it, as of today, which is Wednesday, and I haven't really been on social media today, but I don't think
he hasn't been cleared.
He has not been cleared. So that's a problem. I don't love South Carolina's defense by any means, but that's a big problem. I don't know what we're going to get out of Spencer Rattler's receiving core this year. I mean, I like Wells, obviously, but who else is going to step up? If anything, I think I like the over in this game, but I agree with you. I think South Carolina is going to win the game.
Yeah. This is one of my plays. I think it's a good pick. Now here's the concern. If you're talking about Vegas always knows, this line hasn't moved. This line hasn't moved all offseason. And for a pretty big marquee game to not move, Pepper says hello, guys. Is kind of surprising, right? It hasn't moved at all, and it hasn't moved up 2.5, not 4, not 5.5, not 7.5. It hasn't moved up 2.5, which is odd because you would think there'd be at least enough Carolina people betting on them to cover the 2.5. I'm going to take the bait, and I'm going to take Carolina money line. Here's the thing. I think this entire line is made up because those jerseys at North Carolina is going to come out and are real pretty, and it's a recognizable brand, and they've got Drake May, who is going to be a bona fide top 5 pick in next year's NFL draft. Fantastic quarterback. Phil Longo is gone, their OC. They don't have anybody to throw to necessarily that's been proven at the receiver position. And again, I'll repeat the first part I said. Phil Longo's gone. that defense, I don't think it can get worse, but I don't know how much better it's going to get if you're North Carolina. I mean, they were god awful a year ago. They gave up almost 31 points per game. Now, if you're South Carolina, the keys to winning, I look at this and I think despite what I see on 24/7 Sports and the roster compilation of talent, I think that South Carolina is better and deeper than North Carolina. I think they're better at the skill positions than North Carolina. I hope Juice Wells is healthy, but even if he's not, I love what they have with the other guys they have on the offense. Spencer Rattler coming into his 18th year as a starter should hopefully do better about not turning the ball over. You look at some of the mistakes that Carolina made a lot last year and the year before. They were last in the conference in turnovers. They were, I believe, like 126 in the country in turnovers nationally, right? There's 2 games out of the regular season, just 2 out of the 12 total regular season games they played a year ago, where Spencer Rattler had more touchdowns than interceptions at the end of the game. Think about that. Can't do it.
No.
Cannot do it. In year, yeah, like in year 5 or 6, whatever it is. And I know they have a new OC as well, but I just love the juice from this South Carolina team coming into the season. I think that they're a better coach, that sounds crazy because I know that Beamer is very young in his days of coaching, and Mac Brown is obviously who Mac Brown is. But I just don't trust Mac Brown's supporting cast. And I don't think that they have what they had a year ago, and they won 9-10 games. I think I said it earlier on the Spurs Up Show, I think they're a facade of a contender going into the ACC this year. And I think that all of this hype is built around one player, and that's Drake May. And I don't think Drake May, when he looks around in that locker room or that huddle, has anywhere close to the weapons that South Carolina has. So I like South Carolina to win. I kind of like South Carolina to win big. That line scares the shit out of me that it hasn't moved. Yeah. But the defense, I don't think, even with how bad Carolina's defense has been, they're not worse than North Carolina's. The offense has a chance to be good, especially, like I said, for the 3rd time now. Longo's gone, and the special teams are going to be better for South Carolina. So I don't know what I'm missing, what would make me believe in North Carolina, but I like South Carolina in this one. I like them a lot.
Good. Me too. All right, that brings us to the game of the week. This game is on Sunday night, 7:30 ABC. Oh, by the way, before we get to that, one game I do have interest in that night late on Saturday is the UCLA game, 10:30 against Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
I like UCLA in the game. The spread is -14.5. Reason why I'm interested in that, I think Chip Kelly has kind of silently put together a pretty decent program out there.
Yeah.
Coastal Carolina last year they won their first 6 games and they went 3-4 down the stretch, and Grayson McCall was in and out of the lineup with injury, but they lost Jamie Chadwell, their head coach. They're completely switching from a spread option scheme to more of a pro style quick passing game. Their defense was atrocious last year, and they bring back the same DC, I want to say.
Yeah.
So I like UCLA in the game -14.5, and I like them as a team total over 21.5 in the first half. But I'm interested to see if Dante Moore, the true freshman, plays. I know Ethan
He's not
Garber,
the starter, but yeah, that is a very good point.
And apparently the defense returns 9, and apparently it's supposed to be the best defense that Chip Kelly's had since he's been at UCLA. So
yeah.
But
Sunday, let's get into the game of the week real quick. But hold on, can we just talk about the slate on Sunday?
Sure.
There's nothing that would make me want to go to church more than Rutgers and Northwestern. My God.
Yeah.
Dude, Rutgers is only a 6.5-point favorite. I made fun of this earlier about betting on it, but I might lay the 6.5.
Did you see the total?
39.5.
There's a 3.
I hate it.
Yeah. So game of the week, 7:30 that night. You got to sit through the Northwestern, Rutgers, and Oregon State, San Jose State games to get to the game of the week on ABC. Number 5 LSU versus number 8 Florida State in Orlando. Florida State a 2.5-point dog, over under 56.5. Ton of star power in this game, man. I mean, you've got, I think these teams really mirror each other in a lot of ways too. Both have returning senior QBs who are very dynamic, dual threat QBs. Both have extremely explosive weapons at the pass rusher position in Harold Perkins, Jared Verse. Both have starting D tackles that are not playing in the game because of stupid NCAA rules.
Ridiculous.
Both won 10 games last year. Last year's game came down, as we all remember, to the last play when Florida State blocked the extra point. So here's my take on it, and I'll get yours. I think this is very similar to the South Carolina UNC game. I think Florida State should be favored in this game. They won last year, and you could say it came down to the last kick because it did, but Florida State was the better team throughout the game. I think Florida State has a coaching advantage, and that might seem blasphemous, but
That does.
Florida State played Notre Dame in 2020 when we only won 3 games and had our worst roster we've probably had in my lifetime, and kept that game relatively close in South Bend. Then Notre Dame came down in 2021, same year that we lost to Jacksonville State, and that was the very next week, in fact, took Notre Dame to overtime with a vastly inferior roster and beat Kelly last year, which I think he had an inferior roster last year too. And LSU still probably has a better overall roster, but I think there's a lot of confidence in Tallahassee right now. I think there are more weapons on offense that Florida State has that you have to try to concern yourself with. You add Keon Coleman and Jaheim Bell this year through the transfer portal that I think are going to be 2 of the most talked about transfers in the country this year. They're added to Johnny Wilson and Trey Benson, who were already standouts last year. What killed Florida State against LSU last year was Jaden Daniels breaking the pocket and running. That was pretty much the entire offense in that game, and they got better as the season went on, but Florida State's going to have to figure out how to stop that. And then they got to focus on Malik Neighbors, who's going to be one of the top receivers in the country. But I don't know that LSU has a ton outside of Neighbors that we know about yet. There's been some names that people say have some potential, but we haven't seen it yet. I think Florida State has more to worry about on offense. I think the defenses are probably similar. So I like Florida State in the game. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be high scoring, a fun game to watch, just like last year. But I'm going to take Florida State 38-34.
You know, I love Florida State in this game, and the more I look at the roster, the more I love it. Just, here's the deal. Like, I've said it over and over. A year ago, that game was not close. Florida State dominated that game. 74% of LSU's total yardage in that game came in the last 3 drives. Again, tip your cap, credit, have a give them all the credit in the world for staying with it and not giving up and all that kind of stuff. Tremendous job in in year 1 under Brian Kelly. Tremendous job. However, I think that there's a little bit of a fabrication to how good that team was a year ago because of what I've said all offseason. They beat Bama and they built a whole fucking resume off of it. I think that they're going to be really good. I know a lot of people think that Jaden Daniels is going to be great. It's like, again, this year, it's hard to replicate a 20 touchdown and 3 interception season that he had a year ago, but maybe he does. I'm not even here to talk about that part of it. I think the offense is going to be really good. They get the best defensive player in the country at linebacker. That guy is going to be I can't wait to watch him play. I can't wait to watch Harold Perkins on Saturday. But you know what else I can't wait to watch? Is the fucking return of Florida State football to what it once was that I think is going to happen on Sunday night. Because, and I'm not just saying this because I like you, Tyler, but we've talked about this all offseason. It's not just the fact that, oh my gosh, you look at what they have. They have a Heisman contending quarterback with like the 3rd or 4th best odds in the country, with Jordan Travis, a redshirt senior. That's going to be a theme here in a second. Trey Benson, one of the best running backs in the ACC, if not the country. Redshirt junior. Pepper, be quiet. I'm on a roll here. Then you start talking about what they have at receiver. Johnny Wilson, 6'7", an absolute nightmare of a mismatch for any defense in the country. Keon Coleman, one of the top players in the entire transfer portal that's coming in from Michigan State. 6'4", 215, incredible looking receiver from, like I said, from Michigan State. Then you talk about the fact that they have Jaheim Bell to line up and play wherever the fuck he wants. Fullback, H-back, tight end, whatever. Another mismatch athletically from like he was we saw what he was able to do when he was at South Carolina. You think he's not going to be able to do that with a better quarterback and a better setup here? Then you talk about what they have on the offensive line. Not just returning all 5 starters, but returning 205 starts across the offensive line. I mean, that's incredible. Oh, and then ho-hum, they have the best cornerback and maybe defensive player you had in the entire portal, Fintrell Cypress at cornerback to shore up the secondary. And then you keep looking up and it's like, oh, wow, they have Jared Verse, who was supposed to be a first rounder, decided to come back. And it's not just the fact they have 17 returning starters. It's not just the fact that this game, they need this game more than LSU does. It's not just the fact that I think that they, hear me out here, they have more weapons on offense than LSU. And LSU fans, I'm sure that you think I'm crazy for saying that. But I haven't heard anything outside of Malik Neighbors. I've heard a running back by committee, and I've heard about Mason Taylor because who his daddy is and him catching that game-winning pass against Alabama. You have Malik Neighbors and you have Jaden Daniels, and that's all I've fucking heard about all offseason. You don't have Mason Smith in this game. You do have Harold Perkins. Is the secondary going to be good? Because they got torched at times last year.
Yep.
Florida
Today,
State,
by the way, John Emery out for this game.
Shocking. You know, like I'm looking at this and I'm looking at I'm looking at the roster that Florida State has released for the full depth chart. And I'm telling you right now, Tyler, Destin Hill. Who is Destin Hill?
Dude, okay, so I was going to bring his name up because I'm sure no one knows who he is. This is a crazy story. I've never seen this work out for Florida State. Maybe you've seen it work out at Bama. This kid was a 2020 recruit, and he was the best recruit in our class, but he never showed up on campus. And there's I'm sure some people know what happened, but there's shrouds of mystery about what happened to him the last 2 years. No one heard from him. He had no social media. But everyone on Florida State staff kept saying, we expect this kid to make it to campus at some point.
Right.
And you just never hear that working out. This kid shows up in May after spring ball, haven't played football since high school 2 years ago. And they said that in camp, he's been one of the best receivers on the team.
He's a freshman starter.
And he's from New Orleans.
And he was supposed to be there in 2020.
Yes.
Well, here's a fun fact for you, Tyler. When you want to talk about experience and age and returning talent and experience, I told you the stat you gave me about 205 starts in the offensive line. How about the fact that he is the only starter on offense or defense that is a underclassman and not a junior or higher?
Yeah.
That's insane. They have 19 of the 22 projected starters on this depth chart that I'm reading right now on whatever Noel Game Day is right now that was released earlier from Norvell. 19 of the 22 starters on the depth chart are a minimum redshirt junior or older. They've been in college for at least 4 years. Those are grown-ass men. And I know that you have to go to the SEC if you want to play grown man football, but 19 of 22, that is you have a redshirt senior at quarterback. You've got, like I said, the most important positions. Offensive line, keep them clean. You got 5 returning starters. All of them, almost every single one is a redshirt. They've all been there for at least 4 years. It's a redshirt junior and above. Jared Verse might be the best rush in the entire country. Trey Benson is going to be a household name by November. Johnny Wilson, again, 6'7", 240. Florida State wins on Sunday night. And it doesn't mean the end of the season for LSU.
No.
I think Florida State is legit. And here's the thing that people don't want to listen to. People don't want to say Florida State's legit just because they don't want to say Texas is legit. And it's the same reason they want to shit on Notre Dame. And it's the same reason we want to shit on UCF and shit like that. Florida State was a 10-win team a year ago, and they beat LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State wins this game. Get the chop going.
Let's go, baby.
It's gonna be fun.
I'm hoping I'm right on this. It's obviously when you're a fan, it's easier to hedge and say, I don't think they're going to win this game. I've got faith. I think there's some confidence there. And that's the end of the show. As always, we really appreciate all of you listening to the show. It would really help the growth of the show if you'd rate us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. Leave a review. We'll read the best ones on air. Like and subscribe to the YouTube page so you know when we go live every Sunday night, except for this one at 8 o'clock Eastern. Again, returning this year, the call-in voicemail line. New number this year. It's a local number, 770-674-8233. Again, that number is 770-674-8233. Call us before the game, during the game, after the game. If you're winning or losing, if you want to bitch, if you want to celebrate, call in. We'll play the best ones on air. Don't forget to check out the SDS podcast weekly with Connor O'Gara and check out all our videos and clips from the show on social media. And for Chris, I'm Tyler. Thanks for listening and good luck to your teams on week 1.